that we're experiencing at the moment.
Pollen.
That's about as extreme as we get. Aggressive pollen.
like from flowers. Pollen?
Yeah, it's pretty bad here at the moment.
You can hear it in your voice now that you mention it. So, pardon me 1 second. So I got an urgent phone call coming in here. Let me mute my mic for 2 seconds.
Hello, everyone.
I know that's awful.
Up for a little bit. It's all good.
Somebody hum.
Welcome to Tech News Around the World, everyone. We're all starting to get in there. This is the morning UK edition, and we generally have a brilliant session where we go through the news, headlines, and then we have amazing analysis curated by wonderful Tyler Crowley, who's taking an urgent call right now. So anybody? Oh, by the way, one thing in my back of my head is like we should have our own Tech News Around the World award, right? And have the most creative. We should like think about the most creative.
Best headline of the week.
Awards. You're right, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm back. We could have. We need to figure out the categories and.
Yeah.
Best headline of the week. We could do on Sundays. We could have a weekly award show.
Yeah, my best improved, hair regain,
Morning.
kind of, if you like.
Oh, that's going for the low blow this early in the day, Cal? Jesus.
No. You're funny. I've lost a lot of hair recently. But nothing to do with tech news. I just lost a lot of hair.
Yeah.
It kind of goes at the back with a skull cap.
Yeah.
In some ways, I wish I had that skull cap.
There's a notable lack of headlines around hair regeneration, by the way.
Yeah, but why are men always dropping hair like around 40s? Why?
Hormones.
Because of your diet or what?
Hormones.
And by the way, the best headline I've seen on this topic, it's being done at the Salk Institute across the street from University of California, San Diego, where I went to school, and the Salk Institute across the road from Jonas Salk, who cured polio. And the Salk Institute's one of the best research labs on the planet, and they are apparently doing trials and tests, and they claim they are regrowing. They've fixed the problem, essentially, and it's in trials. And it'd be interesting to see. It takes a couple of years for that whole trial process to go through, but looks like they're claiming an early victory on it, essentially. It might be solved.
Baldness?
Yeah. Male baldness, or yeah.
Now what they do is to do implant, right? Hair implant, right? Have anyone tried implanting your hair?
Nobody's gonna admit that.
LeBron did, I think. LeBron James. I mean, that's
Elon Musk did.
That's right. The richer you get, the more hair you grow.
It's amazing what $1 billion can do.
Gives you a really firm hairline, I hear.
Yeah, you can,
but you should. There's, I mean,
the
real Elon Musk fanboys and girls know. In there's a famous video of when he got his first McLaren delivered, and he's practically bald then, and he was like in his late 20s, and it's totally obvious in the video, and then magically, he's got much more hair, but billions of dollars can do that. Magic. It's like magic. So back into more realistic tech headlines. Let's jump into this, shall we? So hold on 1 second. Talk amongst yourself.
Guys,
What's going on now?
He's getting some urgent calls. It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. Anybody want to just, anybody's got a headline? Let's just start it off. Anyone?
Yeah, let's do it.
Faraz, you had one last night at the end.
Yes.
Oh, for us, it's been crazy on the headlines. Pick one for us.
Is Faraz there?
That's awkward.
I'm happy to basically jump in with a medtech headline. Callum on a Zoom call. Can you guys start?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
no worries, no worries.
Hisam, you start first.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
let me jump in with sort of a med tech thing. One of the things that we've been talking about in this room for quite a bit is sort of these wrist-worn devices. And recently, the FDA just rejected Verily's filing for its wrist-worn Parkinson's clinical trial device. And the reason that they rejected it is they basically said the wearable device does not show that the intervention has a meaningful effect on patients, and therefore they basically rejected Verily's letter of intent. This is one of the things that the FDA has been mentioning, is that they are obtaining a lot of data on motor function, but this does not necessarily improve anyone's outcomes. And Verily, as you know, is a sibling company of Google, which has basically developed this feature for its watch to basically obtain objective information on motor function of Parkinson's patients. So this is one of the things that we've been talking about in this room, is sort of like what will happen with these wearable devices and how much data they are actually collecting. And it appears that the FDA basically is saying, like, if it doesn't have meaningful use for patients, that they may not be approving these devices. This is
Hisam, there used to be a time when a lot of these things got rejected quite often, right? I mean, that's
Right.
normal, right? But
Yeah.
somehow we kind of look at these now, and I guess we had a whole bunch of approvals that on during the COVID period, certainly not on devices, but on other things that we just got accustomed to, things being accelerated through the pipeline. But this kind of you'd expect this, or is there a story behind this? Do you think there's like a
Well,
message they want to send?
yeah, I think that, one of the things that we've been talking about in this room is sort of the government's stepping in for these big tech companies. And the FDA is still an extension of the United States government. And so I think that what we're seeing is that, as these tech companies become increasingly more powerful and as the government tries to find ways of regulating it, I think the FDA has always been sort of a stalwart of being very slow to progress. And I think that now that COVID is over, they are sort of returning back to this. And to remind people of the headline that we had a couple of weeks ago, is that the FDA was extremely concerned about these wearable devices and how much data people could collect, and that these implantable devices were all tappable. And so I think that what we're seeing is sort of a higher bar for the data that's being collected, and sort of what does it mean for patient care.
So yeah, it's another way to start this whole caution that they're getting. The government's basically getting around these big tech companies, and this is another tool that they have to kind of slow them down, maybe.
Yeah, and it's really
Good
interesting
point.
because they just basically had someone step in for these implantable devices, right? So they have sort of their tech guy all of a sudden, right? That just got appointed in February, and it's interesting that basically as they're sort of moving into these tech spaces, specifically like Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon, that it's going to be pretty stringent for them to basically be able to move these devices forward, unless they can demonstrate that they're not just collecting data for data's purpose, but they're actually making an impact for patient care.
So while we're on medical, I had a question for you. There was, where did it go? There was a medical article I wanted to get your feedback on, but I'll have to find it. In the meantime,
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The ex-FDA who approved Moderna now moved to the fund that sponsor Moderna. It was a news yesterday. I just tweeted it. Can you read it?
Nope.
Okay, let me read. Basically, this gentleman, he authorized Moderna's vaccine 6 months ago, and now the ex-FDA chief, is it H-A-H-N, do you pronounce it as Han? Joins the biotech speaker.
Okay, let me read that for you.
So,
the ex-FDA commissioner is joining Moderna incubator flagship pioneering 6 months. Okay, that's nice. Poppy sent in a...
Will there be no conflict of interest for this kind of movement?
The person who authorized Moderna's vaccine 6 months ago is now in the company. Let's see.
I'm just curious. In U.S. sense, isn't this a big thing?
No, but we're not.
He's not serving both positions simultaneously.
Okay, so it is allowed for such.
Perfectly fine. It's like
it's
all he
perfectly
brings
fine.
is his knowledge of the process. This happens a lot, by the way, Cheryl, in the US.
Okay.
People who have a knowledge of the process, they become valuable to the industry. But yes, it would be a conflict of interest if he was, to Sid's point, serving both positions at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is the MO. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cal. This is how superstars in big tech are moving from one company to another.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So Poppy sent.
Can I go with
one?
1 second.
Can I go with one, Tyler?
In a minute. Poppy sent in a photo that I just retweeted, where you can see Elon Musk in his PayPal days, clearly on the brink of baldness, and then more recent photos with Elvis style hair. It's a to
the theme of the start of this.
Yes,
room.
thank you,
I
Poppy.
like that, Poppy. It's right on there.
And you can imagine how much money, how many millions it took to regrow hair like that. But you can see that photo simply by going to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW and join our ever-growing list of fantastically beautiful hair-filled followers, with now 2,739 followers. And if you're losing your hair, we recommend you join, although your results may vary. I'm not having much good luck with that myself, but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. So thank you for that one, Poppy. And
you got to do the time. You
just got to. It takes time. You gotta stick with it. And then while I'm looking through these, she also just shared. I said there was a notable lack of innovation on the hair regrowth front, and she found a recent article. Oh, is this the healthcare article I wanted? I'm not sure. It says hope for baldness and how artificial intelligence can help. Well, this is the headline I've been waiting for, guys. There's nothing quite. I'm just starting the article here. There's nothing quite as great looking as a full head of lustrous hair. Well, I would argue that point, but great hair is very attractive to other people. But the reality is, many men today tend to lose hair as life goes on. Though women do lose some of their hair with age, female baldness just isn't the issue that it is for men. New developments in hair growth over the centuries, Rogaine, blah, blah, blah. It's a very verbose article. Artificial intelligence and robots nowadays can help in the hair transplantation process. For instance, the first and only hair transplantation robot was unveiled, which uses AI, launched in Birmingham. Not only is the robot able to search and identify prime donor hair and then harvest them at a rate 3 times faster than a manual transportation procedure, but it also allows you to see your new hair in 3D before deciding on having the transplant. It doesn't that. It's kind of that's a PR puff piece, we call it. Some company
probably not going to win best.
No, not going to win best article of the week with that one. But what Poppy does make it up in volume, and Faraz, they're both competing for who can submit the most articles. This one might win best article, by the way. This is a humdinger of a breaking news happening right here. This is sound effects worthy coming in from Ranjit. Here we go. Okay, wow, Ranjit actually just sent in 2 fantastic articles. Here we go. He being from India originally, it says, and we're all very familiar of how Twitter and India are kind of butting heads regularly, hopefully not losing hair while they're butting heads. But Twitter has lost its safe harbor protection in India after failing to adhere to India's new social media rules, according to 2 senior government officials. Oh boy. Let's get ready to rumble.
Ladies and gentlemen,
looks like here we go. Microblogging platform Twitter has lost its safe harbor protection in India after failing to adhere to India's new social media rules. This means that Twitter can now be held liable for the content posted by users on its India. So all it would take, Cal, is one little tweet from Cal Patel saying that Modi's a you-know-what, and then Twitter is up poo-poo creek without a paddle, because they are going to be held directly liable for anything said on their platform. They've lost their safe harbor protections that as a platform, if you know what I mean, as they do in America under Section 230. These platforms.
So that would be a local lawsuit they would get, right? In India.
Yes.
Would they sue the US entity there?
Correct.
So that's big.
So Jack Dorsey, in his future flights, better choose flights that don't enter Indian airspace. If we are to learn anything from the Belarusian incident in weeks past, do not fly over countries that want to take you to apprehend you. Twitter is the only mainstream social media platform which is yet to comply with the rules, and despite multiple notices and extra time given to the company, the situation hasn't changed. The government official has said, as a result, Twitter has lost its safe harbor protection and is now responsible for the content users post on its platform. Just a few users, just a couple people. Somebody might say something the government might like out of, I don't know, 1 billion people. You might get one person waking up on the wrong side of the bed saying something that the government doesn't like. How much time would that take? That could take years for somebody to say something the government doesn't like in India, right?
But let's understand.
Well, it's never happened till now. So.
But this is what's so amazing, is that this is where decentralized solutions become relevant, because
Bingo.
Then you don't have anyone to sue.
Bingo. Nicholas, have you been spying in on our rooms here? Because that's why we wanted to invite you back in today, because Jack Dorsey, at the recent Bitcoin 2021 event down in Miami about a week or so ago, said, and he was hinting, and then 2 days after the event, somebody asked on Twitter, kind of randomly threw out a question to Jack on Twitter. Good luck getting an answer, but he did actually answer. And the question was, hey, Jack, why don't you, in essence, put Twitter on the decentralized blockchain? And his response was, it's only a matter of time. And the implications of that, as Nicholas well knows, is profound to say the least, because then when India or Russia, as Russia has also done, or America, or lots of countries are telling Twitter, you must take this content down or else you are liable, Jack Dorsey can then whisper sweetly in their ear, go fuck yourself. Because there's nothing anyone could do about it. And it's not...
Except for the Great Firewall.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see when if there ever should be a decentralized blockchain-based Twitter, that's going to make governments wake the hell up and understand the power of true decentralization. It's a really interesting concept. And now let's turn it to Nicholas, because Jack Dorsey also showed up at that event, rather peculiar, dressed in a tie-dye t-shirt with a long flowing gray Gandalf the Wizard-like beard, with a very unusually casual demeanor. And although he's a really casual guy to put it anyways, but when there's been some really interesting developments even since that Bitcoin event. It was essentially at that Bitcoin event that the El Salvadorian leader announced news that they were planning to pass Bitcoin as their new legal tender, the alternative. And then in a day or so later, they voted on it and passed it, and that's now happened. And since then, Cuba has jumped in and said they're considering the same. A Congress member in Mexico says they're trying to pass a bill in a similar way. Nicaragua, the neighbor there, also expressing interest. And then this is where it gets really interesting and relates back to Jack, which is the focus of this question I'm leading up to. In the past 3 days, there was some very peculiar behaviors indeed. Nigeria banned Twitter, and then a day later announced they have their own central bank digital currency that they're planning. Minutes later, Jack Dorsey tweets from his personal Twitter account a cryptic tweet showing the Nigerian flag handshaking the Bitcoin icon logo, as if to say, forget this new central bank digital currency that Nigeria just announced. Nigeria should embrace Bitcoin. And then he did it again hours later, where he's made another comment about Nigeria and Bitcoin. And then a few hours later, Tanzania's president announces that they want to embrace the crypto technology path forward, as they say it's the future, and they want to embrace the future. And we were talking with somebody from Tanzania on stage here about 2 days ago in this time zone. And we were talking about my question to that individual was, how would this actually work in Tanzania? First of all, does this president have the sort of power to enable something like this? And he assured us, yes, she does. Second, on a technical basis, how would this play out in Tanzania? And because currently today, the way that Tanzanians and many Africans exchange monies is through what they call mobile money systems that are tied to the mobile carriers. So if you are on Safaricom or something like that, you pay with this sort of Safaricom digital money system. And those systems are not able to deal with cryptocurrencies, and specifically Bitcoin. And then it was revealed that Jack is and has been in Africa, and as part of his African visits, apparently he is promoting and proposing using his digital wallet, which is called the Cash App, which, by the way, does handle cryptocurrencies, most notably Bitcoin. And then it starts to get very interesting because the question shapes up. Now, remember what we said about Twitter decentralized a minute ago, where Jack said it's only a matter of time before Twitter's decentralized. And if it is a blockchain decentralized Twitter, governments can't do a damn thing about it. If he feels that way about Twitter, and he's a fan and an advocate and proponent of a decentralized social network and all the benefits that would come from that, would he not feel the same way about decentralized Bitcoin? Because if so, he understands that South America and Africa are probably the places where that could become manifested most readily. And that's why it's interesting that there's now rumors inside of our little tech circles that he's going down to Costa Rica to meet with the Costa Rican government specifically about that. And he set up Twitter in Ghana, and as Mabwana can confirm, the friend that he brought on stage said something to the effect that looks like there's momentum to try and get the Cash App used to handle crypto transactions there in Tanzania. And is Jack Dorsey going to become the decentralized crypto messiah, essentially? Because this is a very strange concept, but the developed world is quickly trying to figure out how to come to terms with Bitcoin by embracing it and controlling it and essentially neutering it or centralizing it, kind of removing its decentralized powers that we can assume Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, had in mind, that it exists in a sort of decentralized way, which Nicholas is well suited to represent that perspective. So I'm wondering, Nicholas, how do you see this playing out with Jack Dorsey's kind of peculiar behaviors in his tweets about Nigeria embracing Bitcoin and these kind of interesting developments in Tanzania and South America? And keep in mind, most importantly, his statement in his own Twitter account recently that he seems to understand the important, powerful potential of making Twitter decentralized. Would he not then be the messiah to keep a decentralized Bitcoin fire burning and use the developing world as the mechanism to manifest that?
So just a very narrow question.
Yeah, very simple question. Yes or no, Nick?
Yes, well, the answer is 420. No, 42, I should say. Okay, so I think that the main theme that I would pick out, if I was to give you two words that were to represent an answer to everything that you've said, it would be narrative violation. Everything that's going on is an object lesson in cognitive dissonance. So what does that mean? It means he's saying one thing, he's doing another. He's advocating, he's dressing one way, but playing different games. So if we look at Jack in particular, and this applies to all of the technocracy and all of the tech bros who were successful in courting the capital of the venture capitalists, and those venture capitalists, you know, as they say, software eats the world and Andreessen eats software. So, you know, if one understands the nature of money, which underpins all of this, that's where we have to look. So let's look at where the money is. So first of all, he can say whatever he likes about matter of time for Twitter to become decentralized, but Twitter is a public company, and that means he has a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders if he's going to act as CEO. And he's CEO of two companies, so it's very hard to have a dog have two masters, you know, or a master to have two dogs. So, you know, he's in a position whereby he owes a fiduciary duty to those shareholders. So he can pretend to be for the people, by the people, but he is legally bound to do what's right for them. So the idea of a decentralized Twitter would mean that those shareholders would have to be negated in some way, or he would have to be setting up in competition to them. So that's number one. And in respect of the article with regard to Modi, I think the narrative violation there is, of course, in not responding, he's making the point that is, you're going to restrict freedom of speech, and it highlights that Modi is moving down the track. And I'm not an expert on Indian politics, but you know, can see the writing on the wall. We saw the writing on the wall through the pandemic and the registration of identities of the population that was wanting support during COVID as a move that was very similar to the social credit system as implemented by Xi Jinping. So in narrative terms, there are the people that are restricting your freedom through the Great Firewall of China. So yes, while he could tell them to go fuck themselves, the truth of the matter is that the Chinese are exporting, I think as we saw, they were in conversation with some African nations because of the One Belt, One Road policy to export the Great Firewall of China. So it will be able to silence people if if it operates in the same way that it does in China. So narrative violation one is if you've got shareholders and you're a public company owner, your fiduciary responsibilities are to the company. The second company he owns is, of course, Square. And Square has been talking in Cash App and the finance market, and those are regulated businesses. And when you're regulated, you also have responsibilities, and he's the CEO of that company, and he also has fiduciary responsibilities there. So again, he can, stir it up like the meme king, Elon Musk. And that's what I think he's doing. He's exercising his power as a meme prince, because he's not yet the meme king that Musk is, but he's definitely a meme prince. And he tweeted out about Square creating a hardware wallet. And again, we have to remember that not your keys, not your crypto. So whilst you might talk about all these fanciful ideas about decentralization and all of this, as you say, the Messiah, this is really a meme Messiah, because of course, everything that they do is centralized and regulated and controlled by the powers that be and his fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders. So that would be narrative violation too. So these are all about memes and this sort of, in inverted commas, class war or currency war, or all of these ideas that these populists are going to take part in the economic world, and that they're going to go and save people. And this reminds me, like you say, just of the missionaries, because you've got Jack going on African adventures and Charles going on adventures with Ada, centralized companies that claim to be decentralized in Ethiopia. And it all sounds like neocolonialism to me. This doesn't sound like decentralized, distributed grassroots movements that are empowering people. It sounds like people going on colonial adventures. So that's another narrative violation, in my opinion. And then when you look at you were talking about green credentials previously, and, again, both of them are talking out of both sides of their mouths with regard to green credentials and energy and El Salvador, etc. It all fails to understand one thing. And all you have to do is Google GDP or world country GDP, and you'll get a very clear picture of why the world is the way that it is and the way that money works the way that it is. And you'll see that US GDP is 22 trillion, China is 16 trillion, and Korea is, as you get down to number 10 or whatever, is 1.8 trillion. So the countries you're talking about are minnows, and the only way that you can actually make something worth something is if you create economic output. That is essential. So going and turning their, currencies into casinos with highly volatile exchange rates in emerging markets is not necessarily the savior move. In fact, it's just a self-serving move because it doesn't help those countries to increase their GDP or, in fact, increase the value of their nations. It's really just a way to assist in maybe distracting from the actual required changes in those economies. Now, thumbing one's nose up against the Nigerians, there's no problem with doing that. That obviously highlights these problems. Thumbing your nose at Modi highlights these problems. But to think that centralized CEOs who were benighted by venture capitalists who were given the money by centralized controllers of capital from government sovereign wealth funds, because that's who funds the VC community at the very high end, is part of the bigger joke. And I think you have to tie this back to the larger narratives that are going around the information that's going to come out tomorrow, which is going to set a new phase in terms of how the Fed is relating to markets. And there's definitely a diversion between what is happening in the real markets of the world and the Bitcoin market. So as briefly as I could touch on all the points, that would be what I would say.
Okay.
Tyler, I have a couple of things to say. Can I go?
In a minute. So it's in the past few hours now, Jack Dorsey has now done the same tweet with the Ethiopian flag, where he's got Ethiopia, Bitcoin is essentially his tweet. So that's very cryptic indeed. We're trying to figure out what this. It's peculiar.
He's pissing on Charles Hoskinson's patch. Charles has announced with Cardano that he was doing something with the Minister of Education, which was very centralized and very worrying because, in fact, they were going to track all the teachers and all the middle school children from cradle to grave with, an identity, but it was not self-sovereign, it was not decentralized. So I think it's just more people jumping in.
His tweet was a reply to another tweet, and the tweet he's responding to is from something called Project Mono, which says, for the last 6 months or so, we have been trying to push the Ethiopian government to consider mining and storing Bitcoin to combat the rising inequalities and global inflation. We now have mobilized like-minded Ethiopians to start Project Mono, which is at projectmono.com. Jack apparently liked that tweet so much that he retweeted it with Ethiopia Bitcoin. Very interesting. So, thank you.
Tyler?
Yes, go ahead, Akil.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add a couple of points here saying that, I don't think it really matters what Jack Dorsey decides to do, whether he's going to decentralize it, what he's going to comply with the government, because I think, if not already, maybe in a year, Twitter is going to be dead pretty much in India and Nigeria, because we have this small company here called Coup that raised about $30 million, and they have a very vernacular first approach. And their product is built for countries that do not have English as a first language. And they are going around shaking hands with every government they can get their hands on and building platforms for them. Like the Nigerian government came on about 2 days ago, the Indian government came on when the app launched, and these guys are gaining numbers faster than Twitter can, just from the fact that Twitter is a product that isn't really built for us. So I don't think it's really going to matter whether Jack decides to go decentral or not, or what his plans are. While he's too busy putting out fires, this company here is going around shaking hands with everybody and just acquiring users left, right, center.
Well, Akil, you can also, you as a geek, understand that Twitter, and by the way, this is, if you really want an inside look at how Silicon Valley plays, what will very soon happen in that case, if Twitter really starts to feel threatened by this other app called Coup, what you will begin to see is a flood of tweets on Coup saying President Modi is the new Hitler, repeatedly, thousands of times, and thousands of variations of that. And then the Modi regime will be like, these Coup people are not our friends after all because they're saying I'm Hitler. And Coup will be wondering, where the hell are these tweets coming from? And they will have a very hard time indeed stopping it. And that's how it's going to play out, Akil, in a way that you are not able to anticipate today. So it's not going to be as simple as you think. So
viral misinformation.
Yeah. So there's a headline that has just come out, and thanks to Renjith for sending this in now, the news breaks in real time as we meet here at Tech News Around the World. Twitter journalists named in a police case for basically this person is already tweets are shared with a clear motive to provoke communal sentiments, says the FIR, adding that the misleading posts were retweeted by thousands of people. Several journalists and Congress leaders have been named in a FIR, First Information Report, over provoking communal sentiments after an elderly Muslim man alleged that he was assaulted on June 5th while the man... Renjith was saying that this is the first case against the social media giant after the government's new rules for online news publishing platforms came into effect. The microblogging site has lost the legal shield. And as I said, it might take a year or so for somebody to say something unpleasant that, Twitter can now be held responsible for it. Well, gosh, it didn't take a year. It took about 35 seconds, and it's already happened, and there's already an article that published about it. And here it is, and I will share it from the Tech News Twitter account. And you can be assured that Coup is also going to make sure that there are lots of tweets coming out that will make Twitter liable, and that they will cause all kinds of havoc for. And Twitter and Coup will magically also find lots of tweets in their app, more than they can moderate, that will also make them no longer the friends of Modi or the Nigerian regimes. So
the only way is a truly decentralized, distributed, of, by, and for the people solution, which isn't identified with a meme king or prince. It has to be, by the people, because otherwise you will be sued or you will be persecuted in some way.
Well, because then the app can say, we have no control over this, and very correctly so. Because as it is right now, they have some controls over it. The Indian government says, yeah, we know you have controls over it, and you need to have a representative on the ground here on Indian soil so that we can arrest that person and do it.
Hence, Satoshi, why do you think, everyone says, why? So Satoshi's no fool. He knew this. If you would have been present, it wouldn't have happened. You have to not be present, or you have to have, truly decentralized before you go live.
A question here. We could hardly call the Moo tweets for tweets, since that's a short for Twitter. What should we call them? Moo?
Coup. KOO.
They're called coups, like how Twitter's called tweets. They're called coups.
We can't call coup tweets tweets. They must have a new name.
They're called coups. KOOS.
They're called coups.
Coup is the a tweet is the sound that a bird makes. A coup is also the sound that a bird makes. In English, it's not that complicated.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
sorry.
Birds coo and they tweet.
No, this is one of the benefits of being a slow kid. You can always blame it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a wild ride for Twitter in India in the next few days here. We'll see how that develops. But I think it forces Jack to dream of a decentralized Twitter sooner than later. The biggest headlines in tech at the moment is that President Joe Biden has named Lena Khan, an antitrust expert who wrote the Amazon Antitrust Paradox, as the FTC chair, after the Senate voted 69-28 to confirm her as the commissioner. Anyone on stage have a comment on that? We should wait for our friend Justin in the next session to really get a good deep dive on that issue, I think. But that's the most widely covered story in America today with regard to tech. The Washington Post headline is Biden taps big tech critic Lina Khan to chair the FTC. Axios says Lina Khan will chair the FTC. Wall Street Journal's headline is Lina Khan, critic of large tech firms, to lead the FTC. And I have to imagine the big tech companies are not too happy about big tech critic Lina Khan being voted in as the head of the FTC. It sort of paves the road for their impeding their inevitable march to bigger and higher levels. So this is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. And let me tweet that out from the Tech News Twitter account.
Except that regulations typically regulate the largest in place, and Microsoft were a good example of that.
Fair point.
After the antitrust, so the fears of the community, of the decentralized distributed community, is that they effectively cut off any hope of competition for anyone facing them.
Yes.
So they regulate themselves in place, just like the banks.
Yes, that's very well made point. That often what seems like, just from the New York Times headline here, it says Ms. Khan, who first attracted notice as a critic of Amazon, was confirmed by the Senate as commissioner on the agency today, or on Tuesday rather. And Nicholas is exactly right. When these things come down, it seems like they're well intended and for the benefit of everybody involved, and can be taken at face value. And in reality, when you get into the fine print of it all, it actually works in the interests of those that it was aimed to, apparent on the face value. It's a bit of a head fake, and it's counterintuitive, and it inadvertently ends up empowering those that it meant to rein in the power from. And we've seen that time and again. So you'll have to bear with the American jadedness that we've learned to develop with regard to these types of issues. So it's
Tyler, did you cover the Facebook audio rooms?
Yeah, so we could touch on that real quick. And let me tweet out this article about this Twitter case that's already developing of a journalist doing something that Modi didn't like. And Facebook did, about 12 hours ago, have their kind of a launch. Michelle is on stage, and she was actually DMing me while it was happening. And a lot of people were DMing me, by the way, like more than I had received about any issue in a long time. That, oh my God, have you seen this? And people send screenshots, and it in all fairness, it's nearly identical to Clubhouse, except that there was Mark Zuckerberg and Boz, who is a very senior person at Facebook who runs the VR department, among other things. And it was sort of it's the name of the room that it was sort of a test, was it not? This audio drop-in room, they called it, Michelle?
Yeah, it was a test room that they ran yesterday, and they focused on gamers. So pretty much just to kind of unpack what's their vision on monetization within the gaming creator community. So it was basically a test, and I think, I don't know the total number of the room, but when I was in the room, it was up to 6.7K. And I think it was 45 minutes, but it will launch, like the article says, by end of the month. And that's going to be US only to start with. So, yeah, it's exciting, I think.
But it'll be...
Does this have real-time audio translation? I'm looking at a couple of screenshots here. It's audio to text.
Yeah, it has the automated caption. So if you want to get rid of it, you can remove it, but that's default.
Michelle, not to overwhelm you with questions, I just have one on the structure of the thing. Is there like a moderation strategy or perspective, or like in the way that we have like room moderation, not overall Facebook moderation? Do you know of that?
Because it is a bit of a sensitive launch for me, it's a bit tricky to share more on
No,
that.
okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
No,
I would
I
say
never want to
there
put you
are
in that position.
there are
Sorry.
few testers currently within the creator community in US, and I think they might be able to share more than I can myself on that.
Fair enough. Thanks, Michelle.
There's, by the way, around these issues of these Twitter has Twitter Spaces, and when I was DMing with Michelle, what I'm curious to find out is there a limit on the room size? Because in Clubhouse it's about 8,000. I've been in some Twitter rooms lately that got up to about 40,000. And Twitter says there's no cap at all on the room sizes, which will make it very interesting for when, the top Twitter celebrities like Elon Musk do rooms. You could imagine if Joe Biden does a room, or Elon Musk or Taylor Swift or BTS, the Korean superstar groups, whether they do it on Facebook or on Twitter, they could have potentially millions of people in those rooms, depending on what they're discussing about. So I imagine that's going to be problematic for Clubhouse, to prevent the A-list celebrities, just based on that issue alone. And that's why I'm wondering do you happen to know if there's a capacity in mind for the Facebook rooms, Michelle? I imagine there's not, because of the scale with which Facebook already operates. And then the second question would be the number of people on stage, because in Twitter they limit it to 10 people on stage, and I wonder if you happen to know the details of that.
Tyler, if you wanted to get an allegory, you should look to Twitch, because of course that's really the biggest exponent, and of course it's got Amazon behind it, which the number one Twitch stream for most concurrent viewers was 2.468 million peak concurrent views on the 11th of January 2021. So I would assume that must be near at the top of the bandwidth.
Mm-hmm. Who was the creator in that case?
It was David Canovas Martinez.
Speaking of this, Renjith, who's keeping us updated.
He's a Fortnite gamer.
Yeah, on this, Renjith, who brought us the headline about the Twitter now losing their safe harbor clause in India. There's now he just showed me that there's now a room happening right now in Clubhouse with 250 plus members. It's an Indian room. Everyone in the room is from India, and the name of the room is India Finally Schools Twitter, which I guess means that the unfortunate bit about that is, of course, then the Twitter Spaces also won't be working in India as well. So that's going to be really interesting.
The room is being done by extremely right-wing journalists,
okay,
and journalistic media. So.
But this is the narrative war now. That's the whole point from your original point, Tyler, is that there's going to be a line drawn in the sand, and then it's going to be decentralized versus centralized, and centralized will be censorable, and of course decentralized is going to be censorship resistant, which is the entire point of the entire invention.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to steer the conversation, because I think what's going to happen is it's going to take something like Nigeria banning Twitter. That's kind of a minor thing. If India bans Twitter, that will catch the attention of geeks globally, and it will send out a very loud signal that, you know what, maybe this decentralized thing is the way to go, because we would hate to fall victim to a similar situation where the American government, and by the way, if Donald Trump becomes president, that's probably the best thing that could ever happen for decentralized technologies. Would it be not, Nicholas? Because then you would get every geek in the world being like, I'm not going to risk my shit being shut down by a kind of a revengeful type political figure. I'm going to build it.
I think we have the exemplar now. There is. I'm careful what I'm saying because there are people that contacted me after I mentioned the social credit system in China, and they said, well, you don't know. And I said, well, it's true, I don't know, but there's no free press, so how would I know? And and it became quite a circular argument, and there are big exponents of that Modi is a force, people that believe that he's a force for good, and this is where we are being set, against each other. This is the effect of social media that is not responsible for the publishing platform. And this is really the 230 argument. And this is where the FTC chair comes in, because, we're in a conversation that is real, and that we can see other nations who do not have freedom of speech, but we also see that in America and in Western countries, that same freedom of speech is under attack. But the reason for that is because journalism has become partisan, because it has adopted a business model as opposed to being impartial, and it can't even feign to be impartial because we don't even know if the data is accurate. That is the problem of garbage in, garbage out, which is the reason why we need self-sovereign identity as a root of trust, so we can start to build confidence back in our institutions, including the fourth estate, which is a valuable part of democracy. But, this is lost when democracy is controlled by large corporations that write the laws that then become the regulations. So we really are trapped in somewhat of a fractal or infinite loop of problems until decentralized identity and decentralized value exchange can be, effectively done peer-to-peer and in a simple way that everyone can use. Because that's the challenge, is at the moment, the centralizers like Jack at Square are effectively taking the ball and running with it. And it's not going to work for them, because they will get shut down, because they are identifiable and they are centralized and they're weak because of it.
So if for example, either India shuts down Twitter, that could be an interesting loud signal to developers everywhere to start considering decentralized first approach to building apps. But to that point, if you are going to build a decentralized platform, along with that comes the need to do so in a sort of anonymous way, because even if you build a decentralized system, if they know who built it, they're going to come gunning for you. And the great example of that is something like the Silk Road, where that was operating in a way that really couldn't be shut down unless they could actually find the person, with the laptop that kept it running, and shut that person physically down, which is what ended up being what happened.
Right. I mean, again, I don't think you can comment on Ross Ulbricht, directly, because it's hard to know what's the truth, because the information is so muddied. But yes, your freedom will be restricted if you do not follow the regulations as set forth by the nation where you're operating, and they'll let you go for a while, but they're not going to let you go to the detriment of themselves, because that's the game.
There's always embassies that you could live in for multiple years, right? I mean, if
yeah, that went well.
But Tyler, there's a problem with being anonymous, right? If you're building like a decentralized social network, I mean, who's responsible for the content and the moderation on the platform?
Nobody. That's the point.
Tyler, can I ask Nicholas a question? Yeah. Nicholas, I just read that Bitcoin will have its first upgrade in 4 years. So what does Taproot mean to Bitcoin and you?
I think it's a technical discussion, but it is an upgrade. It has been agreed upon, it seems, and that's a good sign for Bitcoin, and it's a good sign for the security of the network and the upgrades with regard to privacy. So, yeah, I actually think that this is a positive sign for the consensus. What worries me, of course, is that the amount of Bitcoin that is being dragged into the IOU market via people like MicroStrategy and various others that effectively are removing the strength by effectively bringing it into the centralizer's hands. So it's full of this next wave is going to be full of these sorts of arguments that are really about philosophy and about consensus. So the most important thing is that a community has come to consensus and has done it peacefully, and has done it where there isn't a central controller and there isn't an identifiable leader, essentially. But these are adventures in, advanced democratic, I suppose, meta society building, because it can be built above nations. And that's the real exemplar, is that these technologies will evolve, and the Bitcoin maximalists are hardcore, and so for that they have to be celebrated, but they're also off-putting because they have some strange thoughts around economics that are not going to work. So they're full of strange paradoxes, but the essence of it is consensus building in trustless, permissionless, unstoppable software, which is the future.
Hey, Tyler, it's May. Hey, Nicholas, I know that I've spoken to you on a couple of emails. Could you tell me a little bit more about what Veris.io is? Because I know that there was someone that mentioned you, and I was curious if you could tell us a little bit, in a very brief way, what Veris.io is doing in this space.
We are an evolution of the art where we are combining self-sovereign identity with a blockchain that's using the same or an evolved version of the UTXO blockchain, which is Satoshi's blockchain, and enabling people to create self-sovereign, permissionless, unstoppable networks of value that are easy to transmit peer-to-peer using friendly names. And I would encourage people to look at it, but I don't like to, the principle is that it is people-powered technology that has no founder reward. It's like Bitcoin in all of those ways, and that there are no centralized controllers in any way, shape, or form. So it's built with the understanding of all of the nuance and complexities of building something of, by, and for the people, and doing it in a way that is respectful to the laws of the land and the desires of people. And we're hoping that it will emerge as people come to greater consciousness about what we're about to go through, which is a major, and we've been through a major test of our systems as they relate to our societies. And I'm hoping that we will start to realize that we all share much more than divides us, but we're currently locked into an identity crisis that is separating us by small differences instead of uniting us by the 99% that really adheres to the golden rule, which is do unto others as you'd have done unto you. So that's the ethos of it, and it's working within all of the nuance that you'd expect us to acknowledge.
So there's Faraz sent in an article from Dubai that something called Amazon Payment Services opens a fintech lab in Dubai. The lab will support innovation in fintech through networking collaboration. But here's look what they say in this juicy quote. Because what exactly is an Amazon fintech lab? What kind of fintech experiments are they doing with Amazon Payment Services? Because if Amazon were, by the way, PayPal started dealing in Bitcoin, which allowed people to buy products through PayPal using Bitcoin. And it is well known that perhaps the best thing that could ever happen to Bitcoin is if Amazon announces that they are going to enable Bitcoin as a way to pay to buy things on Amazon, because then all of a sudden anything you could ever want to buy would be purchasable via Bitcoin, right? So, with that conspiracy theory in mind, here's the quote. Through the Amazon FinTech Lab, we work with innovators and visionaries to turn exciting new ideas and concepts into transformational and disruptive forces in fintech. Let me read that again. Amazon FinTech Lab, we work with innovators and visionaries to turn exciting new ideas and concepts into transformational and disruptive forces in fintech. Wow, that's
the main reason, Tyler, that won't happen as easily as one would think is because of Amazon's giant outsized power. Just like Facebook with Libra, Libra got shut down because I'm assuming, I can't, obviously other people on this stage can speak or probably can't speak to this, but the observers of what happened with Libra, where it teamed up with Visa and all of the luminaries, that got disbanded because it posed such a threat to the government that they ensured that it wouldn't take place in order that they could maintain their status in other areas, And I think that when you're at that big level, like Amazon is, you get warned off going too far off piste. But I certainly think that they will use that there will be a US CBDC, central bank digital currency, that we've been talking about this for months and months and years. So this will happen. And, the thing that one has to be aware of is that, of course, these large companies are going to become large powers in cryptocurrencies as well. And that's going to drown out, just because that's the way that the market works. So I think that these things have to be looked at.
For Roz,
they will
are
become
you
a
on stage?
superpower.
If Faraz is here, it'd be great. Maybe he knows some additional context. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here, Tyler.
Any additional color on this?
It's interesting to hear what Nicholas is saying. Nicholas is obviously a mastermind in this space, and he's a specialist. So I'm not going to argue with him. But Amazon acquired Souk.com, which was kind of like the Amazon of the Middle East. This was a couple of years ago. And in Souk.com, it was a unicorn of the Middle East. And some of the earlier sanctioned secondaries in that, participants in that, were Manhattan Venture Partners and similar big names in that space in the United States. And Amazon went and bought that. So instead of an IPO, they actually bought that, and that worked out well. Then Amazon came to the country itself. Then Amazon started doing a car hire service. Most recently, they started a car hire service here for $6 a day. And now the FinTech Innovation Labs, the place that they've opened that office, actually has regulation for crypto. I don't know what's being planned there, nor can I comment on it. But the place that they've opened that is Dubai International Financial Center. You can look it up. There's the offices for Tezos are there. There's a large number of other offices there. There's major other institutions that have their offices there. And then 45 minutes from that place, you've got the ADGM, which houses a lot of exchanges that are kind of going to turn into powerhouses of the future. You even have Kraken, which sits there, and everyone in the space knows who Kraken is. And then opposite to the DIFC, you basically have ESCA, which is the Securities and Commodities Authority of the United Arab Emirates, which has on-ground, onshore crypto regulation. So it's just I'm not coming up with any conspiracy theories. It's just an interesting fact to note. Okay. I haven't seen Amazon do anything like that in any other country.
And Michelle, Libra was brought up. Do you have any thoughts about Libra?
Yeah, I can maybe add to that, not specifically to Libra, because I think Novi is the next iteration of that fintech space we're gonna play in. We've tested in a few countries, but I was also gonna say sometimes, although it's not necessarily public, but it might also help sometimes to see, how many people are being hired on those teams and so on, to know what's going on, because I think that's usually a good thing sometimes.
I think
for those
you just got Johan excited.
What's going on.
I think Johan's diving into the Novi job openings page right now to figure out.
Well, I mean, I know that team is growing, so I guess that means it's not completely dead, So.
Yep. Is it fair to call that like a Libra 2.0, or how do you conceptualize it?
I mean, if I say yes, that would just be my own assumption.
Right, okay.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'd just rather be careful and share what I can share and what's relevant here.
Yeah,
I
understood.
think if I could...
Sorry, Nicholas, if I'll just interrupt here for a second. Michelle, what's the name of the guy that was heading Libra? Because when he was coming down here, we actually had meetings planned with him. I'm forgetting the name of the guy. But anyway, when he was coming down
Marcus.
here...
The surname was Marcus.
Yes. So we had meetings planned with him with a number of other gentlemen prior to when they got called into the Senate. This was a couple of months prior. And, I know they're working on something new. I can't remember what it was. I think it's DM or something like that. Forgive me. But, I don't think it's that far-fetched to assume that Amazon would be looking to start accepting crypto in the future. or start accepting any form of digital currency in the future. It might be digital currencies. It might be the digital dollar. It might be central bank digital currencies. I mean, there's multiple things they could be looking at. But accepting Bitcoin in the future, or accepting anything like that in the future, in a foreign jurisdiction which has the regulation, I don't think it's that far fetched. To be very honest, that's just my 2 cents worth. I have no insider information. I have no sovereign information, etc. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
My observation, Faraz, I'm not completely, I'm not in disagreement with you, and I would just to reinforce that what I understood of Libra was that it was going to be a multi-currency stablecoin, which is what the government objected to. DM, which is what has taken over from it, is a permissioned blockchain, which is obviously not decentralized, not distributed. It's permissioned by Facebook, and it would be a payment system that would, I suspect, be very similar to what Twitter's using for the tipping, etc., and all of that sort of payments running over social networks, much like Apple Pay and Google Pay. Will have also, you've seen USDC, which is an effort out of Coinbase and backed by Goldman, etc., in the same way that Apple Pay is and its credit card is linked to Marcus and Goldman Sachs. So what we're seeing is the merging of social plus financial plus, there have been attempts at healthcare, which I know, Tyler, you've discussed before about Walmart and Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway that actually failed in their first attempt at doing something in the healthcare market. I think that the likelihood is that there will be also a private currency that will be somewhat of a stable dollar, much like a stable coin, much like USDC, that would be used for faster payments. And it seems like the effort is to be outside of the US at first, and then look back to the US if you track what they're doing.
Speaking of the health, an article coming out is that Hassam, I found the article, Haitham, the article I wanted to talk about health is about Bright Health. I'm curious how big of a role they're playing. They're backed by Tiger Global. They're now, it's announced today, aiming for a $14 billion valuation U.S. IPO.
One word, huge.
Yeah, I imagine so, if it's a $14 billion valuation. Curious to learn more about that. And also Oscar as well, which the CTO co-founder is my friend Frederick in Stockholm. And we could easily bring him in to talk about Oscar and kind of the development of that. Get his sense for, he's become an investor since leaving Oscar, working at Lakestar, and now he's kind of just hanging out. But it's health is so interesting how tech is jumping in headstrong on that, as you know, if you follow us each day. Other interesting headlines that people are sharing fast and furious. IKEA is fined $1.2 million for spying on French employees, which is what they make in the time it took me to read that headline. So I'm sure they're shaking in their boots over there at IKEA. So
that was supposed to be a joke, Tyler. I shared that one.
Yeah. But I'm just the point that the French IKEA was fined $1.2 million for spying on French employees, and my point is that the way that the EU does things of fining people $1 million here and $1 million there is fine when you're sending fines to flower shops and cake shops, but when you're talking about IKEA and Google and Amazon, it actually costs them more to arrive at the court case than to pay the fine. So it's like. It's just a funny little cat and mouse game.
I also shared that. I also shared that for us because I know it's a smallish headline, but it's the underlying theme that as employees, you're working for somebody. These companies, you've been watched. It's like there's no
So there's three jokes there, right? One, it's IKEA. Two, it's French employees.
Yes.
And three, it's a $1.2 million fine.
Yeah, the more interesting point is that employees are being monitored, and Amazon as well. It was in a headline, I think, yesterday around similar point, and I think it's interesting because
and we had that headline where Walmart's giving out Samsung phones, right?
Oh yeah,
to employees.
Oh, that was about 2 weeks ago,
for free.
Yes,
yeah,
and
so these things are. Yeah.
Well,
everything comes at a cost, right?
Now, but these companies used to want data about their customers, and now they want data about their employees because well, I wonder, it'll be interesting to see the pattern that develops of which companies are trying to collect data about their employees. And I would project that it has something to do with companies who are concerned that their employees might bring class action lawsuits or unionizing efforts against them. Wow, what a coincidence. Just reflecting on that, it's Walmart and Amazon, and those are the two who are notably most concerned about their employees unionizing, and now they're both collecting data about their employees, and they probably will be able to get a much earlier indication of which employees are actually instigating
the troublemakers,
right? The troublemakers. And effectively remove them very expeditiously, preemptively.
Either remove them or put them into the Zen space.
But you could put them in a Zen box. Yeah.
It gives you reason to take action against them. It gives you ample reason because people will slip up, and you control that device, and that's supposed to be a work device, so it gives you ample reason.
That's a really interesting concept because, wow, Cal, we're just figuring this out right now, but this is worth a little. People should wake up and pay attention to that one. It's what an interesting coincidence. Walmart giving free phones to their employees they've never given anything to. They're notoriously uncharitable to. And these phones obviously allow the employers to gather information about their employees. And Amazon similarly recently also coming under scrutiny for how they have too much surveillance of their team members. And both of those companies notoriously are fighting kind of the unionization efforts of their employees. And boy, wouldn't that be interesting if they were able to find out who the troublemakers and the fire starters are in their camps and effectively, preemptively remove them. That's really interesting.
But Tyler, is this anything new at all? In all my corporate career, all my computers and phones are all issued by the company.
Yes.
What's so different from what is happening?
Because you are a white collar worker, and these are blue collar workers.
Really?
And also,
yes.
Cheryl, was most of your, not making an assumption here, but was most of your working career in Asian countries or?
Singapore and Japan.
Well, yeah. But more importantly, so here's did your company have 1 million employees and fear unionization as an existential threat to their entire $1 trillion empire?
No, I guess.
The answer is no, Cheryl. It's a very easy. I can answer it for you. No.
Let me make an interesting point.
Yeah, the one that's the biggest is probably related to TSMC. So, well, everything is the company's property anyway. We can't use anything from outside.
Right. Yeah, for security reason, you have a very legitimate security reason, and you're very high-level white-collar workers. The point, and you have a very huge security reason why everything needs to be controlled by the company for their own intellectual property reasons, especially being across the street from China as they are. And by the way, there was Chinese spies caught within TSMC only 2 months ago. To highlight that point, why it's so they take privacy so seriously there, and why they issue everybody all that stuff.
And why the US is building its own fabrication plants in the US now and moving all that manufacturing.
That too, but Walmart employees who make minimum less than absolute bare bones minimum wage.
Yeah, they don't deserve to be surveyed in that level. Like these poor, they're just making a living.
By the way, there's not a lot of intellectual. China's not trying to get intellectual property from the Walmart greeters, in Pensacola, Florida.
But it's not. There's no reason other than these kind of other troublemakers.
There is one other reason. Right? There is one other reason. The other big reason is that they will use those phones to finance those workers. So one of the big moves that we've seen in finance is, of course, the reemergence of sort of layaway, but they call it product financing through a firm or Klarna, and those types of buy now, pay later schemes. And similarly has been salary financing. And so the efficiencies that you can gain by giving people digital money on that phone also gives you a high level of stickiness and a high level of, you get both edges of the sword. So it also offers financing benefits, and they will also likely be done with forms of cryptocurrencies, and not Bitcoin, but stable coins like USDC or equivalent.
So we had.
Does anybody?
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Carl.
Tyler.
No,
Just
no, go
quickly,
ahead,
does
Carl.
anybody know if these are generic OSs? Because it would be very, very easy for the likes of Amazon and Walmart to load these phones with a custom OS, much like you get with Amazon. Actually, if you get an Amazon device like a Fire, where it gives you the apps that they think that you want and the apps that they think that you need and the advertising that they think that you need. So if you're an employee, you get the apps that the company wants you to have. Is that a point to be made here? They can control
They'll help
the
you finance
ecosystem.
products. That's how they make money. Because if you've got a large workforce, they're actually your customer. They're your most loyal customer because you get special perks. So you effectively get, like this domestic user base. And if you finance them in buying things, and you have also their payments because you're paying them, then you have your own economy.
Yeah, but I think to Tyler's point here is that Walmart doesn't even actually give their employees health insurance, right? So Walmart is notoriously bad at basically providing any sort of benefit to their employees whatsoever. And this threat to unionization has always been a problem for Walmart. And Tyler, I think, is sort of on the right direction. If you want to go back to Bright Health, I'm happy to do that whenever we're done with this discussion. Thank you.
We have Alonso. I just want to get Alonso's perspective on this because I know he listens to us every day and is amazing. So Alonso, I know you used to be in HR as well, right?
Yeah. Basically, what's happening is these corporations are just playing on people's ignorance of their own personal laws. So, a lot of employees don't know OSHA regulations, don't know EEOC laws, et cetera, et cetera. And basically, I'm going through a workers' compensation fight with Amazon right now, currently. I hurt my back and my hand out there. And they definitely have some OSHA violations within a lot of their buildings. I know for certain the building that I was working in had several issues that needed to be resolved. But what's happening is they want to basically run some impossible production numbers and don't want to be bothered with anybody who is going to stand up for the rights of the employees. So ignorance is definitely the key, and they're going to be able to find any bright spots or any people who have any knowledge of those laws. Yeah, I think you're right, Tyler. They're going to be trying to get rid of you. They've already offered me a settlement to walk out the door.
To be continued, and thank you for the additional personal color context on that. So there's speaking of Amazon, and by the way, we've been talking in the past few days about this really interesting global development of countries putting in new policies to curtail the growth of these fantastically big tech companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, etc. The U.S. passed notably 5 big bills aimed right at the jugular of the big tech companies. The U.K. is doing the same. Yesterday we announced Japan's doing the same. The EU is doing the same. And then today, here's the headline: India to expedite Amazon antitrust probe as tech focus intensifies. India's antitrust watchdog plans to expedite a restarted probe into allegations of anti-competitive behavior at Amazon and Walmart's Flipkart as it intensifies scrutiny in big tech firms. 2 people close to the matter said. The comments come as major U.S. technology firms, including Twitter and Facebook, are at loggerheads with the government over issues such as data privacy bills and policies. The Competition Commission of India, CCI, initiated a probe in January last year on the basis of a complaint against Amazon and Flipkart promoted selected sellers on their e-commerce platforms. And now, as the headline says, India's antitrust watchdog plans to expedite a restarted probe into allegations of anti-competitive behavior against Amazon. And so now we can add India to the list of countries trying to crack down on the big tech. And this is now a global, quite a global thing indeed. China, of course, is doing the same with their domestic companies and the American companies within China, forcing them to share data in ways that would scare the bejesus out of companies outside of China. But very good share for that one. That one coming from Faraz. I just tweeted that out from the Tech News Twitter account, which you can see at TNATW, the first letters of tech news around the world. Another article that just came in from Faraz is the Chinese University of Hong Kong, recognized as the second best university in Hong Kong after HKU, Hong Kong University. Very good university. Is working to create the COVID-19 digital passport, which I just retweeted this story out. The Chinese University of Hong Kong has partnered with Ethereum developer Consensus, so it's on the blockchain, y'all, to launch the centralized, indeed, yeah, no doubt. And then in this context, if the nation is behind the ID, you better believe it's going to be centralized. And by the way, Nicholas, it's not a coincidence that Nicholas was the one to chime in there, because he's working on sort of decentralized and trying to educate people as quickly as one can about the importance of having a decentralized ID, which
self-sovereign ID.
Self-sovereign ID, folks. You heard it here first. You will, 20 years from now, if we don't have it, you'll be saying, I was in a room in 2021 and there was a guy there telling me self-sovereign identities were important, and by golly, we finally figured it out 20 years too late, now that we're all here plugged into the matrix.
I was in a room with very good-looking people.
Yeah, very beautiful, intelligent people, and there was one guy named Nicholas telling us something about.
Yeah. But Nicholas, we just had a chart. Nicholas was a chart.
Yeah,
we didn't know what he looked like.
I try to keep it simple.
So anyway, this passport, this COVID-19 digital health passport, they're calling it, blockchain-based. Although, as Nicholas just said, you better believe it's centralized, just like their digital currency. This new product could help healthcare workers combat the pandemic, and indeed it probably will. The passport utilizes blockchain technology to record a patient's COVID-19 related events, including test results, temperature checks, and vaccinations, to provide a safe pathway to full economic reopening post-pandemic. Information held on the passport is said to be stored securely and privately. Initially, the digital passport will be accessed by medical professionals and academics within Hong Kong's healthcare industry, paving the way for a new mobile app that will be extended to patients later on. The passport infrastructure has been built using Consensus, Quorum, and Codify Orchestrate. And
will be correlated with your GPS and assist in you being shut down for all purposes that are not approved by your friendly government censor.
And the mark of the beast.
Here's the quote. The COVID-19 blockchain passport uses trusted blockchain technology to protect user data, making it verifiable and secure. We are proud to support the Chinese University of Hong Kong with its efforts to apply innovative technologies to help health sectors and communities proactively respond to COVID-19 and transition back to life as normal. And what is interesting about this is a fantastic new breaking example of trading in a benefit, trading in something for another benefit, trading, security trading in privacy for security.
The trilemma.
Yes.
But when Phuket opens in 14 days, I think that for people who are fully vaccinated, they're going to have to wear a bracelet for 14 days. And it'll be interesting to see, first of all, how many tourists sign up to do that. But then secondly, not being a technologist, I'm still curious to see, what kind of technology that they're using to basically track people. I mean, it's kind of like when people get out of prison, right, where they have to wear the ankle bracelet. But I mean, I think that there will be some people who would be willing to make that trade-off because it beats spending 14 days locked up in a hotel room. But I think you're right. We're slowly giving away our privacy.
I read something on that, Lakeisha, this morning. There was an article that said that it's basically bracelets, and you're correct on that. It's location-based bracelets.
I don't even know that in the Thai example, because Keisha and I are both in Thailand, and you don't have to live here that long to understand how the Thailand system works, and it's not very technological. I imagine that the bracelets these people are wearing are not even tracking anything. They're
like those ones that you get in like an all-inclusive resort, like bright orange ones.
Yeah,
rather than
it's like you get
probably going to be very simple, Tyler. Like the simplest of technologies that you can have.
Yeah,
It's
well,
probably nothing like tracked by satellite.
Thais are masters at not overdoing things, and so the point is that you're on a physical island. There's only one way in and out of Phuket, actually, and all they have to do is make sure everyone leaving the island of Phuket that this bracelet has not been. If you've got a bright orange bracelet, you cannot leave this island. It's as simple as that, and they don't need to make it any more complicated than that, really. So it's
except that you could take it off and give it to someone else, or you could,
I think there probably is something in it where if you cut it, they get a notification. But what they are doing now in Thailand is all SIM cards. Your phone can be registered with the Thai folks, and they can see if you're moving from your cell phone, which they have caught a couple of Chinese folks in headlines recently here in Thailand.
It said it's connected to the phone through the location
Doesn't this terrify
in the
you?
phone.
Doesn't this terrify you? Are you not absolutely terrified that that this is the way that we're going?
Well, there's dystopian, side of that coin, of course, and that's the sticky issue. Is there's this coin, and they sell the shiny side of the coin, and there's always the dystopian dark side of every coin when it comes to technologies. And you're right. Shouldn't we be worried about the other side of these technological coins?
Right. So everything we've talked about is that if someone doesn't agree with what you say, they're going to shut you down. So Modi's going to shut you down. Xi Jinping's going to shut you down. Twitter's going to shut you down, deplatform you, demonetize you, etc., etc. And everything comes back to this point. And we do have these technologies that can enable us to have self-sovereign identities and have privacy. So what you witnessed there is that if Ethereum are building something on the blockchain and it's fully verifiable, etc., and it is not using zero-knowledge privacy, and it is not using ZK snarks, it is likely going to make you super trackable, and it's going to put your record on a record forever that is going to be correlatable to you. And that's frightening, because if the government changes, you could become the object of their disaffection. And that's really the issue, is like everything's okay for now, but what happens if things change? And especially if things change because the democracy is also under threat, because you can't be sure of the outcome of an election, whether you're a supporter of the right or the left. That's the issue that we're going to have to deal with. And so we really do need these technologies.
What scares me. Here's what scares me just a little bit. You said, doesn't that scare you? Yeah, of course, freedoms, etc. And I come from a place of, I guess, informed sense, and sitting here listening to amazing people like you, and I get that sense, and I kind of go, oh, what if my freedoms were taken away, and what if what if, right? Different governments come in. But what also scares me is, and if I've not just put a little bit, like, what if I didn't know as much as I know about these new technologies, right? And I don't know about Bitcoin as much, which most people don't, right? Most people in this audience kind of don't know it at the level that you do, and many people on this stage and others do, and probably won't know it, even despite the fact that we explicitly run Bitcoin basics things, and May runs amazing sessions to get people to understand it, but it's going to take a while. So what scares me is, who are these new people that are getting power, right? Who are these, and you said it in your own way a couple of weeks ago, a week ago, like, who are these big bros that, and Brooke said it, all these billionaires, 40% of the world's, I can't remember the exact number of the new billionaires are going to be these people. Well, who are they? Because what I do know about humans is that power corrupts. So new people are going to start to emerge. Now, who are they? At least with these governments, I have some sense of who they are, right? And I can be cynical about them, etc. But who are these new people? Who are they? Who are you? You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. So I agree with you. As regards Bitcoin bros and the 10,000 people that that Brock was talking about that are going to become the majority of the billionaires in the world, that terrifies me, and I don't think that's going to happen. Quite frankly, I really don't. So I don't worry about that, because I think that they're talking about $100,000 Bitcoin in order for that to be achieved. And I still think that's a way away. In terms of what you're saying, though, is I'm completely in agreement with you, but these new technologies that we have enable you to be in compliance. So if you want to see information, I can give you what's known as a zero knowledge proof, which is to say a verifiable proof that I am, say, over 21 and I can drink in a bar, but I don't have to give you my name, my address, my eye color, what cars I can drive, all of that information. That's the difference. So the technology that is available today, that we've developed as one of the groups, but there's other groups that use this type of zero knowledge technology, enables us as humans to be self-sovereign. That means to own our data, own our identity, own our financial freedom, and own our wellness data as well, and to monetize it for our own universal basic income benefits, and combine that data with our peers all over the world, and not have that information be the underlying data be exposed. You can prove anything verifiably using this new type of cryptography. And when you combine that with the security of a blockchain that is of, by, and for the people and maintained on PCs, not on complicated machinery that is environmentally unfriendly, when you can do all of that, there will be an age of abundance that will enable massive cooperation and compliance with government regulations. The difference is they won't be able to overstep the boundary without legal due cause, respecting the Constitution and the separation of powers. And that's what we want.
And Nicholas, the complication here is that we're in the no man's land, right? I call it the no man's land at the moment, i.e. we're in this place, like Cal points out, where, we've got these governments taking in things on board. We've got new people coming into power. We've got this old regime which is running. We've got, in parallel, we've got what you're spinning up, right? The self-sovereign ID thing. But the complication is that there's another, at least, 5 years to shake down, where you're going to see the governments saying, like Tyler, when you read that headline, they said, "We're proud to announce." The subtext there is, we're proud to say that we're still going to be able to control you. So there's this 5-year kind of no man's land that we're in, right? So I think the real question for us is how do we orientate ourselves within the next 12, 24, 36 months to protect against big harvesting of data for the exploitation of those companies and governments benefit, while we just kind of sit by and pump the data in?
You've already lost it. They have everything they need at every level. The difference is, can you bring up a publicly owned, think of it as a third rail, that everyone says, I'm okay with the service I get from Facebook, but I'm going to have the 360-degree version of me that is going to be the most accurate version, like meeting you in real life would give you a 360-degree, three-dimensional version, right? And that's what the unifying benefit would be of having such a technology, and that if you could host it on your own computer, and that you were able to provide, your computer, you could leave it on, or you could mine a currency, and that you would be participating in the security of the network, is the technology. And it is in existence today. So it's not 5 years out. It's going to happen much faster. The way I would think of it is, it's going to be a Nokia iPhone moment, where the technology is going to work equally as well as a centralized version, and it will be much cheaper, and it will be more in the interest of the user to participate, because they will own the system. They will own Twitter. You will own the next Facebook. You will own Amazon, and you'll use the US Postal Service as your delivery network, because you own the nodes. You own the addresses. You're the other end of the continuum. That is the evolution of economics, and that's what's going to be known as the Internet of Value. It's bigger than the Internet. It's as big as the Gutenberg printing press in what it's going to do to our societies.
And the beauty of that is that if you have self-sovereign authority over your data, you're the one deciding to whom and to which extent you accept to monetize your data, instead of others doing it on your behalf.
Absolutely. You could be fully private, but you can share all that data because it's fully private. It's all provable, but none of it is being stored. You are the root of trust and that you're providing cryptographic proofs of everything that you say and do. You say you went to Harvard. I want to see a signature of Harvard at. You said you got a 2-1 or summa cum laude. I want to see summa cum laude at. All of those signatures you will hold, and that will effectively become your digital declaration of independence. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. So we need to have self-evident digital proofs. And that's what cryptography can do today. And there will be a moment. And people don't know TCP, IP, and HTTP and all of the other protocols that preceded the internet. But when it happened, it happened, and it happened fast.
Sarah, you had a comment about a half hour ago that I interrupted. Is it still relevant now?
No, I don't think so. That was about the European leaders trying to create their own tech, big tech. I think that's not in the flow now. We'll come back to that later.
Okay.
Nicholas, could I ask one question of Nicholas?
We need to change topics because the 1% of people who are interested are losing interest quickly.
Okay, this actually is more European based because obviously, Tyler, over the past few sessions, or maybe last week, we spoke of what the EU is trying to do, right, with that identity.
Yes.
That you spoke about.
Yeah, we had a whole deep dive on that. Yeah.
I'm just curious just in maybe one or two sentences, what Nicholas.
In two sentences.
Yeah, just let me know. I'm curious.
Centralized identity systems are being proposed, or standards are being proposed by governments, both in the UK and Europeans released guidelines around identity ideas and identity rules, and they're saying that they're not compulsory, but it's giving a framework for people to adopt this. And what will happen, just like in the US, is that the way that the Western liberal democracies enforce laws is through corporations, and they say, well, look, for civil liberties reasons, we can't insist on a vaccine passport, or we can't insist on these sets of things because they would be challenged by the ACLU and other civil liberties organizations. But what we can do is we can empower corporations who have rights over their domain to say who can come in and why they can come in and what the standard should be for the provision of that data. That is going to be the future. Do not doubt it. This will be our new world. And if we don't insist on using those same rules and regulations and insisting on having a private self-sovereign ability, that's what we want. We want equal rights for a self-sovereign technology that is of, by, and for the people.
Yep. So, Sid, you just shared a humdinger of an article, the Andreessen Horowitz Technology Saves the World. Do you want to introduce that one?
Yeah. So this is this new blog from Andreessen Horowitz called future.a16z.com. And I think this article that I shared is from March, and I've been following the blog, and it's just incredible how beautifully put articles those folks are putting out.
Yeah, this one's written by Mark Andreessen, and for those who don't know,
yes,
Mark Andreessen, not only one of the most brilliant minds in tech, but I mean, whether you agree with him or not, you can't deny the fact the man is like on a whole other level.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, he basically kind of democratized the internet by designing the Netscape Navigator browser.
Well, he deserves credit for just creating the web browser as we know it today. Generally.
Yeah. So this article, I think the thing that really caught my eye, I put a quote, the part of the article that really made me feel connected to it was the fact about how the concept of a geographical lottery is now going to be non-existent.
I have a question quickly because
let him finish his point. 1 second. One second for us. Let him finish his point, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize.
No problem for us. I'm going to be quick. It's the idea of having access to the best companies where they are physically located, right? So this whole concept of being in the Silicon Valley is how you climb the ladder in tech industry. I think that whole concept is going to get shattered, and it's great to see it come from someone from the Valley who's basically a pioneer in the Valley.
More than that, Sid.
So that's the part
more than that.
yeah.
More than that, because he as and you heard me singing Mark Andreessen's praises. Mark Andreessen, more than any one individual, was the peak of the Silicon Valley power pyramid, who pushed the entire mentality that you needed to be in Silicon Valley geographically as a human being to participate in this lottery of Silicon Valley. And the whole concept, he never would have participated. Let me give you an example. He had a very strong policy. He would not leave Silicon Valley to participate in tech events in other cities, because he was driving home the hardcore message. No, it's going to happen here geographically. We are the center of the tech universe here, right here. And I, Mark Andreessen, am sitting on the throne of power, and you're all going to come here and kiss the ring here on my doorstep. Where are you? You're in Stockholm? Fuck that. Where are you? Los Angeles? Yeah, fucking right. Get a clue. No, everyone's coming here, Silicon Valley, here. I, Mark Andreessen, declare by order of the power of the universe held within me that it is here in Silicon Valley. And fuck all y'all. Where you're in where? Southeast Asia, huh? No, never heard of it. Middle East, what? Never been there. It's here. It's Silicon Valley. It's here. That was Mark Andreessen for the past 30 years. And him writing this blog post, and let us quote it, him and the mouse in his fucking pocket, we may at long last shatter the geographic lottery that he created, opening up opportunities to countless people who aren't lucky enough to be born in the right place, and people are leaping into the opportunity to shift, is already creating, moving both homes and jobs at a furious rate. It will take years to understand where this leads, but I am extremely optimistic. And that, my friends, is the final admission that the Silicon Valley hegemony, geographic hegemony, is officially declared over. It's game over. And I, as somebody in LA who
or it's eating the world.
Yes. Well, he agrees that software is eating the world, but it was going to be the pipes of the financial benefits of that were those juicy oil and data pipelines were feeding back to the Borg based in Silicon Valley. And
it still will.
Yes, to some extent. But India's booming, and there's a lot of non-Silicon Valley, non-U.S. investors in that game. And China, of course, is booming, and Europe is starting to do its thing, and the rest of the world will do its thing, with or without Silicon Valley. So for Mark to write those words, I just wanted to unpack the cultural context, and there's more than meets the eye in Mark Andreessen and all people making that statement. And I take it. It hits me very hard, because as an entrepreneur in Los Angeles, when we were trying to do a startup down in LA, we were laughed out of those meetings initially, in part because everyone was towing Mark's line, because he's sort of the thought leader with these kinds of things, and his position that I don't even participate in tech events that aren't in 5 minutes of my house was being upheld by everybody on Sand Hill Road. And there was a very strong geographic, a very conscious effort to keep it geographically centered.
They say
he had the original thesis. So just to also compliment him, he had this amazing blog that everyone should read, who's a startup founder who wants to understand the 2.0 world, called the P-Marca Archive, spelled P-M-A-R-C-A Archive. And that was really his sort of playbook. And then I think he took it down, but you might be able to find it. And I think it also demonstrated that he had first mover advantage with Netscape, essentially. But the last mover advantage was won by Google, and that they moved into a mode from being operators to being capitalists and venture capitalists. And effectively, they created surveillance venture capitalism. And what he then understood was that Sand Hill has become Wall Street, and they went from being very local to being very global. And this is not lost on him, that crypto is the decentralized, geo-decentralized as well, backbone of the future. And they've gone very heavily into crypto, and they've been deep into, again, the centralized version of crypto with Coinbase and the rest of those guys. So they really are the venture capital, which is centrally financed world. And I ran JP Morgan's business raising money for people like them from sovereign wealth funds and limited partners, etc. And this is really his marking of the fact that they're moving from their 2.0 thesis to their 3.0 thesis, which is software eats the world, and Andreessen eats software and the world.
So thank you for the great share. Sid Faraz, sorry we interrupted.
No, sorry, my apologies. I interrupted. So this is a constant argument that I've had with people, and Tyler, Cal, from you guys, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, because maybe I'm wrong. What didn't Jim Clark start Netscape? Mark Anderson came in afterwards.
Jim Clark from Sequoia?
Jim Clark, Hyperion. The original founder of Netscape was Jim Clark. Mark Anderson came in afterwards with the financing, and like you said there, he helped with build the web browser. The underlying code.
If you'd like, this is Shaheen.
He did Silicon.
Go ahead,
he started Silicon Graphics, where I think Mark was at previously. Yeah?
Jim Clark was a he was Stanford. He started Silicon Graphics, which was kind of the Apple of its time.
Yep. SGI.
And then he went on to do SGI exactly, and of course has gateway to NVIDIA. And then he went on to create WebMD later. But he flew to University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where Mark Andreessen and others were students of Larry Smarr, who was running National Center for Supercomputing Applications, where they had created the first browser. So he basically flies in there, and the story, if I remember it correctly, is that he just hires a lot of them and brings them back to Silicon Valley. There are a few other efforts to do browsers that got acquired by Microsoft and others, but Andreessen and team had really been the leaders under Smart to do the browser, the navigator. But Clark was the brains behind kind of going and creating that and running the company to very successful ends. And he continues to be quite awesome.
Thank you for the additional context there, Sahil. And Peter, speaking of big in the globalization of tech, here's a headline that just came in from Nalormi. Thank you for this one. That billionaire Peter Thiel, one of the first investors in Facebook and co-founder of PayPal along with Elon Musk, backs $100 million new Nordic tech fund called Snow Ventures. $100 million fund, Snow Ventures, to invest in Nordic technology startups. The Oslo-based venture capital firm is starting a new fund to invest in early-stage, high-growth technology companies, with Thiel joining as an investor and strategic partner. Snow is also expanding into Sweden and Denmark. Damn right they are, because there's not... I mean, I love my friends in Oslo, but 90% of all the shit's happening in Sweden, just as a matter of fact. So the unique cultural, economic, geographical traits of the Nordics contribute to the success of its thriving startup ecosystem. Max Samuel, partner at Snow, said in a statement, the firm's most recent investments include Portal 1, Kitemaker Fear. And this actually helps me tremendously because I'm organizing the Nordic Tech Tour in late November, where we will go from Copenhagen to Oslo to Stockholm to Helsinki with our own large cruise ship for 1,500 investors and entrepreneurs. And I no doubt Peter will probably like to be part of that now. So I will reach out, and that's a great headline for me personally. Awesome. Thank you for that one, Nalormi. And what else do we got here? Jesus Christ, the headlines are just crazy, fast and furious here. We covered the Mark Andreessen one. Thank you for that, Sid. Fox News creates a $100 million fund for NFTs. Yes, that Fox News, the TV, Rupert Murdoch, Fox News now has a $100 million fund for NFTs. I can't really. That's kind of a head scratcher, except that, as I mentioned before, NFTs can be used in the news industry for images and videos that people take where you want to sell rights to and track the rights of your data that you take in the form of photos and videos, and track who has the permission to use those photos and videos as part of their news articles. And that I predict will be a very interesting use case for NFTs. because journalists and outfits like Fox News would love to have some sort of verifiable, trackable way that they've paid for the rights to somebody's videos or photos when they have breaking news. And that phenomenon will continue to happen exponentially as smartphones have better and better cameras and are all over the place, and cameras get installed all over the place, just like the George Floyd case represents. And those imagine the person who took that, had they put that video on an NFT and sold the rights to publishers who wanted access to republish those videos and photos. So I wonder if that's what they're thinking. But it says Fox Corp is joining the list of investors and businesses pumping money into NFTs, a type of digital file that can be bought and sold around creative works like pictures, music, and videos. Yeah, well, that's connect the dots here. The
Tyler?
Yes.
Sorry, the Fox is interesting because Disney has done the same thing and Sony has, haven't they?
I don't
So
know.
Fox seems to be the last. Well, I know Disney has gotten involved, and I know Sony's put money into gaming and NFTs. And
There's many
GameStop's
different ways
also
this
jumping
links,
in.
MA. There's many different ways that this
Got it.
links, because you've got Disney that's done it. You've got and you're right on the other names as well.
Oh well.
But then later, sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
I know Disney in their headline, which I now remember, many weeks ago, it makes sense because Disney is a content output empire, and they have all kinds of characters and clothing, and they have so many intellectual property characters, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and thousands of them, that they have merchandise, and their merchandise empire is one of the largest in the world, in fact. And so why not have virtual merchandise that you could release through NFTs and snippets of movies and all of that? That makes perfect sense in the Disney concept of things. News Corp doesn't have that sort of same intellectual property. That's why I was trying to figure out how
it does.
Don't they have the films? Don't they have
intellectual
20th
property?
Century Fox? Sorry. 20th
Century Fox
does,
yes, but I think the headline was Fox News in this case.
Yeah, but that's the parent company is News Corp. They're all part of the same umbrella.
Yes, well, no, don't make the mistake. News Corp is the parent company. Fox, 20th Century Fox has a lot of IP. Fox News does not.
No, I think you have to.
They have the same parent, but you and I might have the same parent. But if I do something, that doesn't have anything to do with you. If I buy a car, it's not your car.
Yeah, but I actually worked for News Digital and News Corp myself.
My point is, they
did know.
They're separate companies, same parent. Irrelevant to the fact that they have the same parent, because they have separate IP pools. Yeah, go ahead, Nicholas.
On the basics of it, just for those who don't know what an NFT is, that it's the definition is a misnomer. It's called a non-fungible token. It is really just a definition of intellectual property, and that intellectual property can be licensed in a one-of-one mode, a one-of-many mode, or a pay-per-view or pay-per-click mode. And
Nicholas, brother, forgive me for interrupting. Before we continue on this tangent for an hour, can I just wrap it up in 5 minutes?
I just like to
he was making a very simple point. He wasn't ranting.
Anyway, I'll finish the point because I'm a builder in space
crypto for an
hour. No, he's not. He wasn't. It was very brief.
I'm not talking about.
Okay, Nicholas, go ahead.
Anyway, Faraz, I don't mean to upset you by the domain knowledge that we have.
Please continue, Nicholas.
Yeah, sorry, is we're building these things, so just trying to make it clear because it is actually simple. So. Non-fungible token is a misnomer. It's one of one, one of many, or pay-per-click, pay-per-view. It intimately ties to cryptography because that is the way that you assert that it is unique or one of a limited edition or a pay-per-view item that is, in fact, licensed. And the way that you license it is using a currency that would enable that friction to happen frictionlessly, not using dollars because dollars are too expensive to move. That's what the whole point of these currencies are. So in essence, whether you're a news organization or whether you're a rights owner that has got multiple properties like Disney or 20th Century Fox or News Corp, if you have a reporter on the ground with a camera, you would want that to be signed Fox News at Houston or wherever, and that people would be able to look at that and know verifiably that that was Fox News on the ground, and you would be able to correlate that with the GPS coordinates and the reporter, and so you would know it was verifiable information. And that could all be done with full privacy or with full transparency, and that's the promise of the technology. So it all links together for us. It's not an isolated thing.
Yeah, but I appreciate Feroz's help. He was worried you were going to rant for an hour, but yeah, I didn't think you were. But I appreciate the help, Feroz. And then,
can I just have 10 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
To say something,
Sure.
Tyler?
Yep.
So, Tyler, the intent of that article is because later on in the newsfeed, I post something else. Okay, and I think Nicholas will agree with me on this, that an NFT links together social commerce, social media, IP, news, all forms of anything with IP behind it, along with the coming of the future, which is going to be, metaverses, etc., etc. And the entire thesis that we've been building for ages over here, and then also what recently has been debated a lot, which is BitClout and Twitter going on decentralized blockchain, etc. And then I took an example from how the Coca-Cola market capitalization was affected when Ronaldo got off of their sponsorship. The market capitalization was destroyed. Hence, I posted this article explaining the value that Fox could actually extract from taking NFTs and investing into NFTs, because that is the future of how capital markets, in my humble opinion, are going to correlate. Does that make sense? I'm not going to take more time on the stage.
100%
100%.
Okay, so there's a truly wild headline somebody just shared from Business Insider. I just retweeted this so you can see it with your own eyes from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. China says its fighter pilots are battling AI aircraft in simulated dogfights, and humans aren't the only ones learning. China has been pitting pilots against AI-driven aircraft in training simulations. Wait. A commander told the PLA Daily, the People Liberation Army Daily, that the AI aircraft were sharpening the sword of Chinese pilots. I see what's going on. The AI was also learning, highlighting the potential for AI systems. And so Chinese fighter pilots have been battling aircraft piloted by artificial intelligence in simulated dogfights to boost pilot combat skills. The PLA Air Force Brigade flight team leader and recognized fighter ace was recently shot down by an AI adversary in an air-to-air combat simulation is the key word here. He said that, I thought they were claiming there was actual AI piloted planes in the sky that they were fighting. And I see what they're saying, that they're using AI to improve AIs, just like AIs can ostensibly in the near future drive cars better than humans can, they will also fly fighter jets better than humans can. And why not compete against an AI like chess players do, rather than learn by competing in simulations against humans? And so that's an interesting development, but they're simultaneously showcasing their AI prowess, and no doubt the real motive behind this headline is they want to flex that their Air Force is improving, but with the help of AI. But that does lead to the article 24 hours ago that China did fly an unprecedented number of their fighter jets over Taiwan in the past 24 hours. And Taiwan responded by flexing their anti-aircraft defense systems. And it's a very concerning headline indeed. And by the way, Joe Biden is and the G7 are now telling China to chill the fuck out, guys, before you start another world war over there. So let's hope cool heads prevail. Other interesting headlines at the moment here. The Tiger King, Joe Exotic, is selling his own NFTs. Speaking of NFTs, from prison. And anyone who watched the Netflix series Tiger King knows exactly what we're talking about. Joe Exotic and the Tiger King, still one of the most interesting.
That one's supposed to be a joke. That one's supposed to be a joke by me, although it is happening.
It is a news headline. Whether it's funny. It's not.
You can sell it NFT from anywhere.
Yes, it is happening, but it's funny. That's why I posted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol Baskin's also doing it.
Yeah.
For us, Carol Baskin's also doing
it. There's an interesting point here,
exactly.
Which is somebody in prison is able to make it a living by doing something from prison through the power of NFTs. That to me is the interesting sub story to this headline, that I think 99% of people will miss.
They used to smuggle in drugs
Correct.
and sell drugs to other
And
things, but now they sell NFTs.
And because NFTs are
from inside
essentially
prison.
information, he can essentially create something from prison through simple phone calls to his team members outside of prison, or if he has access to a device to mint NFTs, he can make incredible amounts of money from prison through NFTs. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, by the way. So let's see if they actually reveal how much any of these NFTs are going for. They show.
I want to give this guy all my data.
Yeah, they show one of his NFTs that he's released. And he says, I'm really grateful to the More team, the MORE team, for giving me a platform to give back to my loyal fan base, Joe Exotic. It's been great to have a voice via blockchain technology, and I'm honored to be the first to kick off celebrity NFTs. And indeed, being able to make a living. It says NFTs are fueling the frenzy among artists and investors looking to cash in on the market that has ballooned by as much as $1.5 billion so far this year. It'll be interesting to see how much people pay for these Joe Exotic NFTs because, as I said, what an interesting way to make money behind bars. Very interesting. Thank you for Faraz for sharing that one. Other interesting articles. Microsoft just leaked the preview of Windows 11. Flash your mics if you are interested in Windows 11 and what Windows 11 looks like.
What is Windows?
Windows is an operating system similar to Mac OS that you use on your Mac device.
I thought they died some years back.
Yeah.
Haven't been using it for 15 years.
And that's why I'm asking if flash your mics if you give one shit at all about Windows 11. Go ahead and flash your mics. Anyone on stage? Carl, as a developer, and maybe Luis. So, Carl, this one's for you. Windows 11 has now adopted rounded corners, and that is, I shit you not, kind of the big headline around Windows 11 is they've now adopted the very Apple-like rounded corners to make their operating system look like it's not from the 1990s, and that's it's very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
The main reason why I'm interested in this is to see how much of a shit show it turns out to be, because Microsoft has this wonderful cadence of a crap version coming out and then one that's actually pretty good and then a crap version and pretty good, and 10 wasn't too bad. So 11, yeah, this is going to be funny.
It's like the Fast and the Furious series.
It now goes to 11, by the way.
Yeah.
So
and we are still expected to pay for that.
I don't know if they're charging for Windows anymore. That's a good question.
I just spent $200 on a freaking copy because I have some engineering software I need to run on my M1 Mac. Fun.
So another big, and this one's a bit more interesting. Amazon, as you know, one of the big tech giants. Google, another one of the big tech giants. Google, as we've been discussing regularly here, has started their own new alternative to cookies called FLOCs, FLOCs, Federated Learning of Cohorts. And of course, that kind of raises the walls on the walled garden of Google, where they are able to take advantage of this, and it blocks out people from getting data through cookies. So it sort of further entrenches their part of the hegemony, the tech triopoly or quadopoly, whatever you want to call it. And the headline now coming out today is that Amazon is blocking Google's FLOCs, and that could seriously weaken the fledgling tracking system that Google has developed. Amazon is blocking Google's controversial cookieless tracking and targeting methods. Most of Amazon's properties include Amazon.com, WholeFoods.com, and Zappos are preventing Google's tracking system, their new cookie alternative called FLOCs, Federated Learning of Cohorts, from gathering valuable data reflecting the products people research in Amazon's vast economic universe. According to website code analyzed by Digiday and 3 technology experts who helped Digiday review the code, Amazon declined to comment. As Google's system gathers data about people's web travels to inform how it categorizes them, Amazon under-the-radar move could not only be a significant blow to Google's mission to guide the future of digital ad tracking after cookies die. It could give Amazon a leg up in its own effort to sell advertising across what's left of the open web. Here's the quote. This move is in direct correlation with Google's attempt to provide an alternative to the third-party cookie, said Amanda Martin, VP of Enterprise Partnerships at digital agency called Goodway Group. She called Amazon's choice to block Flock, Google's Flocks, on most of its sites another example of the chess moves Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon are making as data privacy pressures force the destruction of the foundation of data tracking across the internet, the third-party cookie.
Dude, this is even heavier than you believe.
Go ahead.
There is indications that they have implemented flux blocking also on their load balancer on AWS.
Oh,
and
shit.
AWS is
shit.
Home to quite a few
oh my
small
goodness.
websites.
Oh my goodness.
That's why I brought this forward, because the thing, I dived into the rabbit hole as soon as I found it and thought, okay, are they doing this to AWS as well?
Oh, that's huge.
Hell yes.
Oh my God. That's some big fucking news, y'all. And the journalists will not pick this up for another 48 hours because Johan, if this is his area of expertise around online shopping and data and the like. So it's natural that he would understand this first. So this is wild. Holy shit. Great find, Johan. What's going on to unpack this? These Google Flocks, which are their new next generation cookie, which only benefits them and nobody else, essentially. Amazon, they're essentially, by creating that, blocking out everybody else from all of this data tracking goodness that they were accustomed and built their ad networks on. Notably, Facebook is incredibly disturbed that Google has made this move. And Amazon is likely as well. And now Amazon is retaliating by not allowing these flocks to participate in their ecosystem, which understandably is Amazon.com, Zappos.com, and there was one other. What was the other? Oh, Whole Foods Market. Okay, not a big deal. Until you realize, as Johan did, Amazon actually controls the cloud for about, 30-40% of the fucking internet. Right? Now, Amazon could pull the really gangster move and not allow these flocks to work on any of those sites that operate on Amazon Web Services, meaning about 30-40% of the internet would not function with these flocks. And Johan suspects that is the case.
It is. It looks like flocks have trouble to go through Amazon's content delivery network as well. So this might be a heavier.
Oh, that is so gangster.
Than we've seen.
Oh wow, that is a.
So they could do this for sure because it passes through their content delivery systems, as being said. But the Flock system actually benefits. It's terrible. It's a massive privacy concern. Even WordPress, for instance, came out a month ago or so and said, "Hey, we're going to block this by default as well." And WordPress is about 40% of the blogging internet.
Tyler, could you slow it down
hold
a
on,
little bit? Tyler, but I'm really confused right now. Just a little bit. Just slow it down because I'm feeling very slow here.
And we're going to turn it to Carl.
Me too.
Carl, I just spoke to Matt, the founder CEO of WordPress, is a dear friend of mine. I just spoke to him yesterday about joining this room, and he asked what time, and I just showed him the schedule so he can join us probably tomorrow. Go ahead.
Get him in. Yeah, absolutely. So my point is that there's a hell of a lot of websites that are going to want to use Flock. Because the point is, it can give you that tracking data before you yourself have put the cookie. Traditionally, you as a website would put your cookie on, and it would track you as you went elsewhere. But the Flock system gives you all of that metadata on the first hit, and websites want that. So, if Amazon comes in and says, "Hey, we're going to block this unilaterally across all of our content delivery, across all the Amplify services and all of the load balancers and everything else." Not everybody's going to be happy about this because a lot of sites want this. It's good for them and bad for you. So I'd be interested if they did do this unilaterally because it's an interesting business decision. Yeah.
So here's from that article. Amazon could have a motive for enabling Google's trackers to take note of what content and books visitors look at They don't just do stuff, said the exec regarding Amazon's deliberate approach. This has got to be a test of some kind, said the exec. For instance, while Amazon has lots of data internally about people's interests, the company could want to learn what Flock IDs tell it about the interests of visitors outside the site. Amazon might also want to see how its own ad tracking and targeting stacks up against Google's in a control test of some sort. You could then put Google in their own horse race without telling them, said the exec. But Amazon might be planning to stop Flock tracking, according to ad tech researcher who has conducted Flock research and helped verify Amazon's Flock. Cal, to answer your point about slowing it down, essentially what this boils down to is a sort of data war of sorts of who's got access to. There was the internet cookie, which followed everybody around the internet all the time, and everyone had access to all of these cookies. It was kind of like a data fiesta. And Google started realizing, wait a minute. We have the biggest control of the browser market share, both on laptops and desktops. We have other ways of tracking everybody all over the place. We could kill the cookie because we are the browser, the default, the market leader in browsers, both on desktop and mobile. And that gives us the power position to change the game, make our own, kill the cookie, make our own version of the cookie, because it's really, the cookie is inherently sort of tied to the browsers. And in doing so, sort of have a much better position with regard to tracking users around the web. That would be to our advantage and to the detriment of everybody else, and give them a sort of unfair advantage. And so that hurt Facebook. It hurts anyone who has an ad network, because ad networks depend on the cookie data. Facebook has a big ad network. Google has a big ad network. Those are the two biggest. Google's ad network benefits from the Flock process and diminishes Google's Facebook's ad network and Apple's futuristic ad network and Amazon's nascent ad network as well. And they understand that, and now they're starting to fight back in clever ways, is essentially what this comes down to. Is Amazon says, oh, really? You want to play that game? We control the cloud layer of the internet. You control the browser layer of the internet, but we control the cloud that all the websites run on. So when the users have to go through our cloud to get to all the other websites that are also in our cloud,
and that's 40%
of about 40% of websites run on Amazon's cloud.
So that's it. Thank you so much. I was just
it's
thinking,
all about the
that's
social
good.
commerce.
And then where does WordPress come
WordPress
in?
websites are about 40% of the websites on the internet are WordPress websites.
Right, got it.
So
excellent.
Matt, who's an old friend of mine who's spoken at my events many times over the year, who I spoke with yesterday, and said, hey, why don't you jump into, because yesterday there was a headline that WordPress just acquired a little app called One Day, a little diary app. And I said, hell, that's a cool acquisition. You want to talk about it in tech news around the world? He says, sure. When are you meeting? And I just replied and said, here's our schedule, so that he can pop in. So keep an eye out for Matt Mullenweg, who's, by the way, one of the sweetheart people in all of tech. Truly one of the nicest, sweetest people you will ever meet, in or outside of tech. And
Tyler, can I give a metaphor
go ahead.
for people who don't understand like Flock and cookies and everything else? And please, like Johan, correct me if any of this sounds stupid or incorrect to you. But imagine it in a physical sense. If you're going into a store, and traditionally you go into the store and the store says, well, we don't know you, we don't know who you are, but we're going to follow you once you leave the store. So you go in, you buy your stuff, you're anonymous, and you leave. And then when you leave, a member of the company follows you around to see where else you go and what else you do. And at any point you can clear your cookies or close your browser, or if you're using something like Firefox, it does it, really good security settings. Basically that person loses you. Okay. So you go into the store and then somebody follows you out of the store. What this is proposing is that Google already has all this data. Google already knows everywhere where you've been and everything that you've done, because they run all of the searches. So what happens now is Google goes into the store ahead of you and they say, hey, somebody is coming in and you don't know who they are and you can't track them when you leave, but they are a part of this group of 1,000 people, and all these people in this group really like barbecues, and they're alcoholics, and they have depression, and they go to Amazon, and they go to this, and then they go to that. So although the store can't track you when you leave, Google actually enters before you go into the store and gives them this sort of hand-wavy description of all of the places where you have been before. And they get over it by saying, well, you know, and we're not going to tell you exactly which person is which, but all of these 1,000 people that are coming in all like these same things. So that's like the comparison here. It's the data's already transferred before you even go in. It's just this pseudo sort of anonymism that's handed off with it that just isn't actually, you know, true.
Yeah, super interesting.
And Tyler, just to add on, as you're mentioning WordPress, because the other day we had also here in a room, a discussion whether we should work from home or not. We need offices, you know, what is the infrastructure, what's the trend. WordPress is actually a fully distributed team itself. They're proud of not having a kind of a central office, people sitting in the same place, but really fully distributed. It's a very interesting model. We had interviews and we looked at the company, how they work. And I'm talking about 3 years ago, you know, to understand them, how they operate. And it is worth to look at distributed teams rather than just having people trying to have them in the same place in the office. So that was just something I wanted to add on here, because there was great learnings when we talked to the team, the guys, specifically to understand how their setup is, how they engage employees, how they motivate their team, you know, in order to work, have everybody working from home, basically.
Yep. There is just a tremendous number of articles. My God, for every article we cover, 3 more come in. But we're going to pause because our friend Ben just opened the Bitcoin Basics room, what is now all about cold wallets, which anyone who needs to learn the fundamentals of storing Bitcoin and crypto, it's a fantastic room. And then we have, and you can see that by clicking on the title of this room and see all the upcoming events. You have the Bitcoin room, and then we meet here again in just about 6 hours, 5.5-ish hours. So I hope you can join us for that, or meet us again here tomorrow about the same time. But if you do find interesting stuff, please feel free to share it with us. Tweet it from your account and include our Twitter account, and then we look forward to sharing that here in Tech News Around the World. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Tyler, should we open the next room with this Google Amazon beef? So if so will I do a deep dive into it and have more information?
Johan, I was just thinking about that. You, Carl, and a bunch of you, because it's a topic that my intuition is that a lot of the audience would really appreciate because you guys get it, right, instinctively. But at some point, that would be just an amazing little.
We'll make it right. Let me ask if Carl wants to join that. Carl, you want to join Johan with that right now? I'll make a room right now.
Oh, not
I'm happy to do that if everybody else does. Yeah, if it's interesting to people.
Yeah.
Okay. Name the room.
I'll join.
What do you call the room, Johan?
No, let's call it.
FOL.
Yeah, let's call it Flock.
Yeah, Flock. Just Flock.
No one has a clue what Flock is. For the people.
Yeah, what?
Post cookie board. Post cookie board.
Yeah,
Zooming sideways.
Flocking in and out.
How do people know who you are?
How about something like who's tracking you on the internet?
Yeah, who's tracking?
Love
you?
it.
That's the one.
That works.
Okay.
That's the
It
one.
speaks to the masses, i.e. me.
Flocking hell.
Yes, I'm saying flocking in and flocking out.
Okay, who's tracking you on the internet is coming up very shortly here. It's now created. I just need to go into it and open it to the public.
I'll close this room if you want. Yeah, you go in
Okay.
there.
Cool.
I don't know how to leave this room that we're in right now.